Okay, here we go. I'd like to call this meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Paula, please call the roll.
Mr. Marmee?
Present.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Bub?
Here.
Mr. Koss?
Here.
Mrs. Floyd? Here. Mr. Frazier?
Here.
Ms. Hall?
Here.
Because I don't see Mr. Johnson, do I?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Mangus?
Here.
We have 9 present this evening. If you'll please stand and join us in the invocation by Mrs. Floyd, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you bow your heads, please? Almighty God, as we celebrate the beginning of our country, we thank you for all the rights and freedoms expressed in our Declaration of Independence and guaranteed in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. We ask that you be with our military around the world in this increasingly dangerous time, and with our first responders here at home. We depend on them to protect us. Be with us as we make decisions for our citizens. Help us to understand their concerns and work to solve them. Be with us tonight as we make decisions for our community. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Floyd.
Next on the agenda, we have caucus. That's the time for council to discuss anything that's pertinent to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything? Okay. We'll move on to the minutes of our council June 19, 2017 meeting. Motion to approve those. Motion by Mr. Rath.
Second.
Second by Mr. Frazier. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. We have 3 reports this evening from standing committees, one from Finance, one from Service, and one from Capital Improvements. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Also on reports from city officials, we have one from Barb Jobes, our city tax administrator, the income tax revenue reports for a period ending June 15, 2017. Those will also be received and filed. We have no communications this evening. Next is our first section of comments from citizens. There are 2 sections for comments from citizens. One is now and one is after the legislation. Basically, this is not a debate with council. This is your just chance to be heard. If anyone would like to speak this first section, please raise your hand and I'll have you come up. Yes, sir. Please give us your name and address for the record.
David Doney, 231 John Reese Parkway, Pataskala, Ohio. I just wanted to publicly thank Mayor Hall. I don't see Service Director Rhodes here tonight, but Service Director Rhodes, Jeff Hotchkiss with the Parks Department, and everybody else who supported the Strawberry Festival this year, Kiwanis Strawberry Festival. It was a very good year. We did much better than we did last year, and a lot of that I think has to go to the city and the help that we received in making sure that we had everything we needed. So I just wanted to publicly thank everybody for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Jones.
I'm Peggy Jones, 1115 Wilmington Court, Newark, Ohio. I am here tonight because I'm a little annoyed about the article I read in the Advocate of the Carson Barnes Circle Council. Mr. Frazier is very much against. I have a problem with pulling the rug out from somebody when you're about to have your event. That's why I'm here this evening due to the article in the Newark Advocate and the Columbus Dispatch that Councilman Frazier wanting a resolution to ban all circuses from the city of Newark because of animal abuse. Mr. Frazier, I don't know if you've ever seen animal abuse at a circus in Newark, Ohio or not, or are you just relying on the animal activist group, PETA? I'm just terribly disappointed in your decision to disrupt the Carson and Barnes Circus plans to visit our city August 4th through 6th. If you wanted to pull the rug out from under the Heathbound Builders Kiwanis Club and the Carson Barnes Circus, then you should have made your proposal this past fall. This is a big fundraiser for the Kiwanis Club, who does a remarkable job in our community supporting our Salvation Army. The Yes, which is a teen club for teens that have no place to go, and they keep them from getting out of trouble, which to me is a very important part of our community. And also the Veterans Alliance. I don't know if you ever served our country or not, but I'm very patriotic and I appreciate all that everyone does for me. Now these three agencies are going to be scrambling to function on their budget. The circus is out of a booking, and they're going to be hurting also. I don't know if you have any plans to help the Kiwanis Club to have another fundraiser that's going to bring in between $6,000 and $8,000 a year. I think that's pretty hard to do, but hopefully you have something in your pocket that you haven't disclosed. I think that what you were elected to do on City Council was not meddle in organizations, fundraisers, that provides money to important services to our community, like the Yes Club, the Veterans Allegiance, the Salvation Army. I think that if you've ever been to a circus, I don't know if you've ever gone to a circus or not, I happen to love circuses. And to be quite honest, I always wanted to swing on a trapeze. And I did a lot of trampoline work when I was growing up in 7th grade through high school, and my goal was to go join the Barnum and Bailey Circus in Sarasota, Florida. But I was so tied to my mom, I never realized my dream, but I still would like to swing on the trapeze. But anyhow, I'm hoping that, I don't know if you have a backing from people that want you to ban circuses. I don't understand what it is, but I've taken my kids to circuses. I just took my granddaughter's nephews to circuses and see these little faces and awe and excitement. And I know people abuse animals, and I know it's wrong. But there's always going to be abusers out there, just like there's child abusers, there's animal abusers, there's adult abusers, there's domestic violence people that we just experienced in Kirkersville. And I think we could probably put our energies to better projects than banning entertainment for adults and young children. And I know I'm an animal lover. I would never think of abusing, but you have to understand this is all learned behavior. People growing up have watched their families abuse one another, abuse their children, abuse their pets. So I would like for you to reconsider this, and I really feel badly that this had to come up about 6 weeks before it was to take place. And I know I was looking forward to going, but that's how it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? This first section? Mr. Frazier, you have a minute if you'd like to respond.
Hey, Peggy, thank you for coming and taking an interest. It's a really important thing that people are engaged with these discussions. And so a lot of hype has been around what the resources are. So we're looking at the Humane Society of the United States, the Humane Society of the State of Ohio, the Humane Society of Licking County have all said that animal cruelty exists in circuses, as well as Last Chance for Animals, Animal Defense International, Performing Animals Welfare Society, and a former director of zoos and aquariums. And so it's a systemic issue that we're seeing from circuses, and I get the nostalgia and wanting to participate in the circuses. I'm sorry you didn't get to achieve your dream of being a trapeze artist. I'm okay with human acts coming to Newark, Ohio. It's the manner that they treat the elephants and the large animals being on the road constantly, unable to provide adequate veterinary care, adequate housing, which is really where the issue comes up. And thank you for coming and sharing your comments, and I appreciate your concern and being a part of our community.
Thank you. Let's go on to resolutions on the second reading, 17-40.
Resolution 17-40 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Johnson, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 17-40. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmee.
make a motion to adopt Resolution 1740.
Motion by Mr. Marmee, second by Mrs. Floyd. Do we have any discussion on 17-40? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Mangus?
Yes.
17-40 passes 9-0. Next on the second reading, we have 17-41.
Resolution 17-41 by Mr. Rath, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Frazier, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to participate with a developer in the cost for construction of an oversized sanitary sewer which will permit service to areas beyond the developer's needs.
You've heard the second reading of 17-41. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
to make a motion to adopt 17-41.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rath, second by Mr. Frazier. Is there any discussion on 17-41? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll and vote.
Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
And Mr. Mangus?
Yes.
17-41 passes 9-0. Now we move on to resolutions on the first reading, 17-44.
Resolution 17-44 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
17-44 will be held for our next council meeting, which will be July 17th. Next, 17-45.
Resolution 17-45 by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Marmee, and Mr. Rath, a resolution waiving the licensing fees prescribed by Section 812.03 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Newark for the operation of circuses by the Heath Mound Builders Kiwanis Club.
This is on the first reading, but before we say anything, I've got I believe the law director has mentioned that this is on the first reading, so we can wait 2 weeks and go to the second reading. If there's not a motion in a second, it dies. If all the sponsors want to withdraw, it can be withdrawn, or we can go ahead and pass it.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Anything on 17-45? Okay, we'll move on. It'll be held till July 17th also. Let's move on to 17-46.
Resolution 17-46 by Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
17-46, Mr. Marmee.
I make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on Resolution 17-46.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmee, second by Mrs. Floyd. Autumn, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Cost,
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
and Mr. Mangus.
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived, Mr. Marmee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt Resolution 1746.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmee, second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on 17-46? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll vote.
Mr. Marmee,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Cost,
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
and Mr. Mangus.
Yes.
17-46 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 17-47.
Resolution 14-47A by Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Frazier, and Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Newark to enter into a community development block grant funded subrecipient agreement with the hereinafter named organizations to carry out activities included within Newark's fiscal year 2017 community development block grant 1-year action plan.
17-47 will be held for a week and a half into July 17th for second reading. And finally this evening we have 17-48.
Resolution 17-48 by Mr. Rath, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, and Mr. Frazier, a resolution authorizing the conveyance of certain real property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio, to Newark Development Partners as its agent for industrial, commercial, distribution, and research.
And 17-48 will be held till July 17th for a second reading. And that concludes our legislation tonight. Thank you. Okay, next we have comments from citizens. That's your second opportunity and last opportunity. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Ma'am? Do we have anyone else that would like to speak? Okay.
My name is Cindy Hess. My address is 364 West National Drive, Newark, Ohio.
Ma'am, if you could just speak up just a little bit, because I'm hard of hearing.
My name is Cindy Hess. My address is 364 West National Drive, Newark, Ohio.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Take your time.
I'm nervous. I don't talk and run, but I have reached out to as many city officials that I possibly could. I emailed the mayor twice, once in May, the second one, June 28th, expressing my concern for my family's safety. I called the safety director twice. There was a lady that answered. I'm not sure who it was, and I left a long message in full detail of why I needed to speak with him and never got anything back. I went to Newark Police Department 3 times and left messages at the front desk to speak with Mr. O'Connell. No one has called me. I asked Sergeant Wilhelm when I did call him and he answered, if he could have Riley, which I was told was the chief, it was wrote down on a piece of paper, I'm not sure if he was the chief or not, call me, and Sergeant Wilhelm said he would give him a message, but he could not make him call me. He never called. This is starting back in April. My daughter, youngest daughter, is on methamphetamines, drugs. We cut her off. We don't allow her at her house. She's with a group of people. And in April, one of her boyfriends decided that he did not like a post on Facebook and threatened to kill burn my 3-year-old granddaughter and kill her. We filed for a CPO in April. That he's yet to be served. He cannot be served. My daughter lives at 150 South 5th Street. His sister lives at 229 South 5th Street. He's there every day. We call every day. Newark Police Department is tired of me. I'm tired of these people. The prosecutor has refused all charges that the officers have filed against these individuals. Today, I called the governor, the attorney general, and both of them stated to me that they could not take complaints because of the home state rule. I asked what that was and was told no state elected official could file a complaint against any elected city official, and I was advised to get an attorney. I don't have the money for an attorney. I paid for 2 attorneys here in Newark for the CPOs. I was told to go to legal aid. I don't qualify for legal aid. I called the U.S. Justice Department, and I need to write a letter, which I am going to do tonight. I called the FBI, and they gave me a number for the FBI public access line. They said to call the Ohio State Police. I Googled that and called the Ohio State Patrol, which they told me, I called the Granville one, and they stated that they would only respond to officers, Newark or sheriff, that they couldn't get involved with us. So I called the FBI back and told them that, and they gave me an address which I could file a complaint through, which I will tonight. My family was physically attacked by over 30 people. Meaning physically attacked. They came to our home on our property. My husband was hit in the knees, put on his knees, and had a gun to each of his temples. There's a woman, the girl was later identified as one of the sisters, that kept hitting him in the back with a ball bat. Everyone that I talked to asked why. Why are they here? Why do they keep coming? I don't know. All I know is my daughter is on drugs. She's mixed up with them. She wants me dead. I have that in a text message. As fast as she can possibly get me dead, and the slowest death that I could possibly ever imagine is how she wants me to die. 18 minutes after that text, we were attacked. We have called the police on every incident. We've had 3 incidents at our home. with people there, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, beating on the door, beating on the side of the house, threatening to fight us, wanting to fight us, and we called the police. They did, a few of the officers filed against the 3 members that were there one time, and the prosecutor just did not pick up any of the charges. The day that the 30 people came, my husband was arrested for disorderly conduct, and he was tased. We were told by several officers to just move. Why don't you just move? My daughter, oldest daughter, is 26 years old. At 29, she'll own her home. So they further announced, well then she's got equity in it. Just move. So we may do that. Sergeant Wilhelm looked at me and he said, Cindy, the only way that this will end is in a homicide. And that one's hard to swallow. I'm sorry. The Newark Police Department, I believe, in my opinion, dropped the ball on May 29th of this year. And they could have charged everyone that came to my house and threatened me and put a gun to my husband's head. And 2 women tried to grab my 3-year-old granddaughter. What were they going to do with her? The neighbor grabbed her, thankfully. We continue to be threatened every day. Every day. We have $700 in video system. We have them on camera out front of our house stopping. We go to the police department and they laugh at us. We call the police department and they come and they laugh at us. I would like to go here to Officer Purty. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. In closing, in his statement, in closing, this is a constant problem with 2 families fighting. Neither side of the fight is willing to back away and wait for the police to respond. And I informed both sides that this is the beginning of a lot of arrests if the behavior does not stop. Please file appropriate charges on Freddie and Sonny. There's never been one time that me or my husband or my oldest daughter has ever went after, tempted them, prompted them in any manner. Never was there any call that we had went against them. There's been several calls that I've made to Newark Police Department. Yesterday, I called and Officer Snow came. And he said, if you haven't noticed already, Cindy, it's getting bad and it's going to get worse. So I would leave. I don't understand why you, Mayor, can't even return an email. Tell me to go to hell. Anything. Nothing. I got nothing. The safety director, the chief, and no one wants to talk to me. Why? Because I have done nothing except for follow the law. I filed the CPOs. I was sold everything at my house. I have my own business. I'm barely getting by. I don't know what else to do, so I came here tonight and I'm begging, just like I put in both emails, that somebody look into this. Because have you ever had 2 guns at your temple? Have you ever had to go home and deal with your husband, who has to be strong because it's only him against all these crazed psychopathic drug addicts. And he's scared. And I'm scared. And I don't know what to do. So I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope and pray that somebody will at least talk to me. Because I have done nothing wrong, nor has my family. Thank you.
Hang on after the meeting a minute, and I'd like to get your name and number again, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Honorable Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll pass.
Mayor Hall.
I will pass this evening.
Mr. Marmee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will call a Finance Committee meeting. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Marmee. Mr. Rath.
Thank you. I'll call a Service Committee meeting, and I will pass.
Mr. Rath. Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. President. Cindy, I just want to say, it takes a lot of courage to come up here and explain your whole story and everything that's been going on. I hope that the safety director or someone before you leave here tonight will talk to you. So hopefully, someone will talk to you tonight. So hopefully that'll happen. That'll pass.
Mr. Blake. Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one item this evening. Wanted to pass on, maybe some of you already know, there's going to be on July 14th a Military Appreciation and Hometown Heroes event with the Budweiser Clydesdales in town, and they will be leaving from Park National Bank to the Licking County Foundation, and all veterans and anyone currently serving is encouraged to attend and to be honored. So with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Mr. Cost.
I just wanted to mention that in the third week of June, I had the opportunity to attend a program that Newark High has. There's a STEM program that they have, and these were for students between the 4th and 9th grade, and their project is called Building a Better City. I heard some of the most interesting ideas that I've heard in quite some time. There were over 200 elementary kids. There were close to 100 junior high that were all there working, trying to come up with ideas that they think would improve the city of Newark. And I heard ideas about how to use the Longaberger basket. I heard ideas about events at the mounds. I heard ideas about safe walking paths to the schools. And I heard one that particularly caught my ear, which is the idea of having a zip line course in one of our city parks. And these kids were focused, and they're interested, and they're ready to do things to help the city and to make it a better place to live. One of these nights, I'm hoping to have a few of them come and introduce themselves and tell you about what they've been doing. So it's a worthwhile project. Mara Horgram is a curriculum director in Newark schools, and she put this together, and she had a lot of people working with her and helping, and it was just an incredible event. With that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Cost. It's not a trapeze, but that zip line thing would be close. Mrs. Floyd.
I'd just like to apologize to Ed and the Kiwanis Club. I know that you have done a great deal for the community. I appreciate all those things Peggy mentioned that you have donated toward, and I also I told Ed earlier if they're doing a fundraiser of some kind, I'd be willing to help, because that money is very helpful to the community, and I sincerely apologize. That I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Mr. Frazier.
And I'm sorry that things happened the way they did. The biggest thing is in 2014, I was outside the circus. I walked in, I witnessed the situation of the animals, and I really just cannot express more wholeheartedly my belief in what the situation is. And that these animals are neglected, and they're abused, and they're transported continuously and forced to perform. And we're going to have the Humane Society in next week for the committee. We're also going to present legislation in the Safety Committee, which I have to call as well, and we really want to get down to what the facts are. Cindy, your story is devastating and impassioned, and my heart goes out to you, and thank you for presenting it in the manner that you did, and you did a fantastic job. And I hope something can happen to you, and we all up here feel the pain in your voice and the pain in your family. When it comes to the facts of the matter, the biggest thing that I wanted to do was to address the situation appropriately, and that's what the committee is there for. I had no idea the circus was coming until the legislation was brought forward. I went the night before and studied up and made sure I knew the ins and outs. And this whole PETA thing has been blown out of proportion. This is unanimous. We have a bunch of people in the zoo community. We have people that are in animal rehabilitation clinics. We have everybody that says there's this systemic issue that does not improve education and does not improve conservation of large animals. And when it comes to the training and it comes to the presentation, it's impossible to know how the animals are going to react. It's impossible to know and make sure that their safety and the audience that are watching these events. The legislation has been compiled. It'll be prepared and presented. And I apologize for the Kiwanis for putting the investment in, but there are other opportunities. One of those is locally sourced animals where you don't have to travel them across the countries. We have veterinaries with camels and llamas and emus and alpacas, and you have the opportunity to redesign your fundraiser that is both educational and opportunistic for our community. And instead of having a circus that takes the money and goes back to Oklahoma, we can give the money to farmers, veterinarians, and people to invest back into our community. And so I would love to work with you on that. I have a veterinary cousin who has numerous animals, and if there's anything I could do to help, I absolutely support Kiwanis and the good work that you're trying to do. And I'm glad that you took the proactive step to really examine what is being said. And I look forward to working on this issue with you. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Fraser. Ms. Hall.
Thank you. I will pass.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. And Mr. Mangus.
In my other life beyond City Council, I teach history at The Ohio State University. And in every one of my classes, whether they're lower division classes or upper division classes, I always talk about sources and how they can be biased. I try to educate my students to not trust everything that they read or that they hear, whether it be in the news media, on the internet, in a book. And I ask them to verify the claims through reputable sources. Frankly, I think that one of us on City Council failed to do this at the last Finance Committee meeting. Even worse, the Heath Kiwanis was ambushed and was belittled for supposedly not doing research on the issue of animal abuse. The Kiwanis actually did their research. There is no doubt that PETA has an agenda. There is nothing wrong with having the goal of eliminating animal cruelty. I personally have 10 animal children living at my home right now. 7 cats, 2 dogs, and a bunny rabbit. Supposedly, my eldest daughter's boyfriend is bringing me 2 hermit crabs on Friday. I pray not. The sources that were quoted at the Finance Committee and subsequently sent to City Council members, however, contained many falsehoods that were accepted by one of us as facts. Even a superficial reading of the PETA document shows that there have not been 85 citations from the United States Department of Agriculture in the past 35 years. On the first page alone, one citation was listed in 3 different locations. As Mr. Ware stated, several citations listed by PETA actually were against circuses other than Carson and Barnes. One council member who accused the Kiwanis of not doing research questioned where he should look to find the truth, if not PETA. I've heard several other locations that he has looked at since that City Council or Finance Committee meeting. Frankly, I think the question is a very easy one to answer. The least biased organization involved in this situation is the regulatory agency, the United States Department of Agriculture. According to the USDA, every citation given to Carson and Barnes Circus in the past 35 years, and the number was significantly less than 85, was rectified in an acceptable time period according to the USDA. A few weeks ago, there was some discussion about a temporary moratorium on allowing medical marijuana dispensaries in Newark. The same person who now wants to ban circuses claimed then that the moratorium was a ban and that this would send a negative message to other businesses wanting to relocate to Newark. Personally, I think what occurred at the Finance Committee is significantly worse for business development than a temporary moratorium. If we are now going to ban businesses that receive citations but are in good standing with the appropriate regulatory agency, we'll have to ban public education because our schools have received a fire code violation. We'll have to shut down most restaurants and grocery stores in our city because they have received a violation or a citation from the health department. The statements made at the Finance Committee were inappropriate. Many of them were factually wrong. Even worse, they belittled a wonderful organization, the Heath Kiwanis, that contributes thousands of dollars each year to organizations in our city. These chastised and inaccurate comments have potentially cost the Kiwanis up to $8,000 and also harm the organization's reputation, not to mention harming the organization that the Kiwanis helps in our city. As a council, we owe the Heath Kiwanis an apology. I would encourage all of us to make a monetary contribution out of our own pockets to help rectify the financial loss suffered by this organization. I know that I personally cannot cover the $8,000, but I will be sending a small donation to show Kiwanis that I honor their hard work and dedication to Newark. If legislation is brought before council to ban circuses, I will definitely be voting no. And with that, I pass.
Thank you,
Mr. President, he's clearly talking about me. I would like a rebuttal.
Can you do a 30-second wrap up here?
Yeah, so according to libel, it's written and oral defamation statement of representation that conveys an unjustly and unfavorable impression. When you're on the Newark Advocate website trolling me with your Facebook comments, it's not indicative of your chair. It is not indicative of the position in which you sit. A moratorium and a ban are synonymous, and so me using the term moratorium is completely kosher. And although it might not be 85 but 52 citation, it is emblematic of systematic issues with that circus and the maintenance of their creatures. And so I appreciate your comments, Mr. Mangus. Once again, we'll agree to disagree. The Shrine Circus, the Garden Brothers Circus, the Coles Brothers Circus, and Kelly Miller Circuses have all contracted with Carson and Barnes for their elephants where issues have arisen. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Our next committee will be next Monday, July 10th at 5:30 in this room. And our next full council meeting will be Monday, July 17th at 7 p.m. Motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Cost, second by Mr. Mangus. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.